All right, we're gonna go live right now. You type.
All right. Yeah, I'm about
All
to.
right, we are live. Woo! Welcome to another Basement Radio Arcade Brap rant. Hey, we've been dropping some rants. First of all, I want to say something real quick. I want to personally thank everyone for supporting this channel. This is a labor of love for us. I want to thank all my panel members, Slow Mo Backslap, aka Mr. L. I want to thank Gaming Forte, who's with me today. I want to thank B Money and Eric Jackson and everyone that we've had on as a guest. Over the last 5 years, we've been growing a lot more recently, and it's all because of you guys who've been supporting the channel for the last 5 years, and for those that have recently subscribed. I definitely appreciate the growth. Forte and I were actually talking about this on Friday after that Friday fireworks rant. Yeah, which I did edit, by the way, Forte.
I told her, I said, if you want the raw footage, you better go get it now before Enrique takes it down forever.
Yeah, it was raw to say the least, man. It was like, it was like WWE, like Monday Night Raw. Like, it was raw.
So what did you do? Just download it and then cut that part out?
No, you can actually, YouTube has a feature now where you can actually go through YouTube Editor. And you can edit out, you can edit out segments of a podcast without having to download it, edit, and then re-upload. Yeah. So I did that. Yeah. So, but yeah,
doesn't
it was.
Doesn't mean we don't love you, OBJ.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we got mad love for OBJ and Kal-El. It just got a little overheated. So
the testicles was flying that day.
Oh, the testosterone was flying, man. It was intense. So yeah, man. I just want to again say thank you to everyone. Like I said, 14 hour, talking about some of the growth of the channel, and it's been really impressive over the last couple weeks, man. I mean, it's just been great. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for supporting the channel. And big shout out to all the other channels that have supported us as well. From our buddy from Double Barrel Gaming, Mr. Boomstick XL, Mooch over the Crossfire, the Iron Lords podcast, Wilmy and the Fork Gaming crew. I know I'm missing people. Saltiest Gaming. I'm just trying. FC Violent and his crew. And I apologize for forgetting any other podcasts. Super Deformed Games Cast, which played an important role in the beginning, and we've been on their show. They've been on our show, which is actually they're called Super Deluxe Gamecast now.
I saw the rename.
Yeah, so and again, I apologize. I gotta give a shout out to the Ashton Luca and Scumcast. We've been on their channel. They've been on our channel. So just want to say thank you to all the channels that supported us. If I missed you, if I didn't, recognize you live, it's not because I don't value you supporting us or coming on BRAP or me being on your show. I just honestly, I've been on so many shows that it may escape my mind, so I apologize. No, it's not intentional, but I want to say thank you to all the podcasts that have been on our show and that we've been a part of as well. So on that note, Gaming Forte.
What is up?
Dude, thank you, man, for spending some time on your day off. And somebody asked me, where's Crap? That's right. I got to, give a shout out to Crap Gamer as well. He's, had me on his channel. And big shout out to Zaire. Zaire's been on our channel. Big shout out to Weapon Wheel Podcast. We've had those guys on. We've been on their show. And shout out to the Press Play Podcast. We've had those guys on. I've been on their show. I'm sure there's more podcasts I'm forgetting. So,
look, man, all this basically tells you is networking is the number one way to help you grow your channel. The more people that you put around you, they're always going to be here to help you get better. Just because some are PlayStation fans, some are Xbox fans, some are PC fans, doesn't matter. Everybody's doing this for the love of gaming, and everybody has an opinion, and that's why it's good to just basically talk to everyone instead of putting yourself in a nice little cocoon and being your own little echo chamber, because that's the slowest way to grow versus the way that we're doing it here on BRAP. And really appreciate all the support you guys have been giving over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, well said, man. And you're right, man. I mean, like, it's funny. Like I said this at the end of Boom's podcast last night, where it's like, look, we can. It's okay to have a difference of opinions. Like you can actually be civil with somebody you don't see eye to eye with. Like that's okay, because at the end of the day, the common bond that we have, that's stronger than any opinion, is the fact that we love gaming so much. But big shout out to Jay Fonzarelli too as well. The RDX guys, Dealer, and all those guys. We've been on their show. They've been on our show.
Yeah.
Big shout out to Tim Dog. Oh, gotta give Tim Dog a bark. Tim Dog's been on our show.
You gotta yell.
Yeah. I'm not
gonna yell out the yeah.
Yeah.
I can't do it at the no. We're trying to keep our eardrums.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of Jay Fonzarelli, Jay Fonz is in the house. What's up, sir?
What's up, Fonz?
Yeah. See, Z Black Rider says, that's right. I disagree with Brap on almost everything. That's hilarious, man. Yeah, but hey, Z shows up here, man. Like, big shout out to Z Black Rider, man. He shows up here every week. If he disagrees, he's still here. But like Z and I, we love gaming, God, as I'm thinking about more of these podcasts, man, they're starting to come back now. Big shout out to Randall Thor. He's been on our show. Big shout out to my homie Southbound, who I can't wait to meet at E3. Been on TXR. He's been on our show as well. Thank you guys. And again, if I didn't name you, it's not because I purposely forgot you. I appreciate all of you, and I mean that. So, I think I need to get something off my chest before we talk about this topic. Is that okay?
Oh. Man, more than welcome, man. Go ahead.
Because I know what you're gonna say. Oh, Enrique, what did somebody say on Twitter now?
Hey, man, this is an inclusive channel. Say what you need to say.
But
it's a safe place.
But is it a safe place?
It's a safe place.
Oh my God!
Only when Slow-Mo's not here is not a safe place.
Slow-Mo starts fights, man. You notice how
I know. That's why I keep trying to tell y'all that, man.
Yeah, I'm about Slow-Mo, aka. You know what? It's Slow-Mo, aka Set It Off. That's his nickname. No, but it wouldn't be a rant if I didn't rant about this, and and I'm not picking on anyone. And I'm not going to name any names here, because we don't do that. I'm okay with difference of opinions. Okay to, debate. But I will say this: that it just doesn't come from this one person I was having a conversation with. I've seen this narrative across the internet recently, where it. I'm going to talk about anti-consumerism. So,
well, you already knew this was going to be. Go ahead.
I mean, I don't know how to say this, but you see, Slow-Mo, you've seen this argument.
I'm not Slow-Mo.
I mean, I'm sorry. Why do I always confuse you guys, man?
Because we're like one and the same, I guess.
You guys are brothers, man. That's what it is, man. Like, seriously, you guys are.
Brother, man. Yeah. I give them his props where they deserve that.
Yeah. So, by the way, big shout out to everyone in the live chat, guys. Please hit that like button. And I'm going to drop the link in the live chat if you guys wouldn't mind retweeting that. I would definitely appreciate it. I just dropped the link in the live chat. Right. So here's what I was gonna say. You see that narrative of, gaming exclusives are anti-consumer. Now, Forte, I know you don't agree with that, right? Well, let me ask: Do you or do you not agree with that? I don't want to assume that you do.
Say that statement one more time, just so I can make sure it goes through my brain completely before I make an answer on that.
Yes, exclusive games are not anti-consumer.
They are not anti-consumer?
Yes.
No, they're not.
So I had
to make sure I clarified that, because you got a little way of twisting those words, and then next thing I know I'm agreeing to something that I'm like, oh yeah, you're absolutely right. They're like, wait a minute, hold up, this got me with the fake.
Yeah, right. The old okey doke. But
Right.
so the interesting thing is this conversation came up, and I went down the rabbit hole. I did because one, it's not true. The argument this individual was making was that, well, because a certain platform doesn't require me to buy their hardware, therefore the other company that requires me to buy their hardware is anti-consumer, and they were defining anti-consumer as beneficial to the company only. The company gets something out of it. That's a loose translation or definition of anti-consumer business practices. Now, on that note, all businesses, imagine this. All businesses are in the, like Forte, you work for one of the largest gaming retailers in the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is your goal as a company?
Make money.
What is the goal of Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo?
Make money. Make more money than they made last week.
All right. Are they forcing you? Are they taking away your ability to make a choice to support their product or not?
No, they're not. They're basically just giving you they have different ways of enticing you to want to buy from them, but ultimately the decision is up to you. They can't make you do anything.
Exactly. When your rights and your ability to make a choice are taken away from you, then you can argue that is anti-consumer, right? No one is forcing you. You have the decision to make. When you buy, if you don't find value in something, if a company doesn't do what you think they should do to please you, it doesn't make them anti-consumer. And the point I was trying to drive home is that Forte is that if Sony has Spider-Man locked behind the PlayStation 4 hardware, right? You don't have to buy the PlayStation 4 if you don't want to, right?
Right.
You don't have to do that. If you find, and if a consumer finds value in something, they say, hey, you know what? I'm buying the PlayStation 4 because, damn it, I want to play Spider-Man. Well, guess what? You are saying as a consumer, you're voicing as a consumer to agree to enter terms of service. You're telling that company, I am buying your hardware. I'm entering this agreement with you because I find value in it.
Right. And I'm looking at Black Rider says exclusive games are fine. Timed or exclusive content is a different issue. And I can see if you're thinking on like the macro level, how that can be something that you could really believe. But technically, it's the same thing. It goes back to what I just said a second ago. Companies do different things to entice you to want to buy from them. And having exclusive time content is one of those. But you technically don't have to do it. You don't have, as long as the product, like the main product, like let's say Call of Duty is available everywhere. Unless they take a product away from you that you normally were normally able to buy, that's when you can sit there and say, and even then I think it's a stretch because these are all intellectual properties, and there was a deal behind doors that were like with the whole Tomb Raider thing. Microsoft had a handshake deal, money exchange hands for that game to be exclusive on Xbox for the 1 year that it was. Now you had an option to go out and buy it on Xbox and buy an Xbox if you were a PlayStation fan, or you could wait a year because you found out that it was only exclusive for a year. So technically you had the option to wait or the option to buy, and that doesn't make it anti-consumer. I think sometimes people think of this, they use this as a catchphrase when they just don't like the way something is going in the industry, and they feel like everything is anti-consumerism. And I'm like, that's very not true, because your rights as a person aren't being violated. You are actually still getting the product you want. You just may not be getting the product you want under the circumstances you want, but it's still available for you to buy or just to say no to.
Facts. And this is where people conflate what is good for me, what I want, versus what truly constitutes anti-consumer business, man. Mm-hmm. What you just described, and I want to put it out there because it's a narrative that I'm seeing out there. And it's funny. I was talking to a developer. I won't name their name. about this yesterday, and they're like, "Yep, I see that narrative all the time, where if it doesn't, what was I going to say? If for a lot of people on the internet, anti-consumer is a business that doesn't give me exactly what I want." And that's what you see nowadays, and that's not what anti-consumerism is. Do not think that that's what it is, because that's not what truly defines what anti-consumer business practice or behavior is. So I'm done with that rant. I wanted to just talk about that, because I think it's a false narrative. It is a false narrative that's going out there.
I do want to ask you this, because
Yes.
what's name just brought up a good point. A good point. Just a point that he brought up. He said that blocking crossplay was anti-consumerism. Do you think that's true?
No.
When Sony was blocking it?
No.
I don't either. I just think that, once again, you have an option to go to a platform that provides it. If it wasn't available at all, and it was a means to do it, then you can have an argument. But even then, it's something that they offer you, but it's not promised to you. It's not something it's not the thing. It's so hard to have an anti-consumerism practice inside of gaming, because these are all things that they can give to you, but if they choose not to give it to you, it's at the behest of the publisher and the developer that's making the game. You're really not promised anything, because it's not like your rights are being taken away from you. You're still playing a game that is being made for you to enjoy. Gaming is a privilege. It's not a right. It's not something you have to do. And that's where I think people get the whole situation really twisted.
Yeah, like FC Violence saying anti-consumers like block crossplay, like you said, that's not anti-consumer, because you want that as a consumer and a company doesn't give it to you. That doesn't make it anti-consumer. You have the choice to either go to a platform that gives you what you want. If it's not available on your platform, or if a developer doesn't want to give that to you, that doesn't make it anti-consumer. That's free market. It's capitalism. This is the idea. People don't understand free market and capitalism, guys. That's not the same thing. We got to stop arguing the anti. Now, if Sony went out and you bought their console, and they said, "Hey, by the way, anytime you want to play a game, we're going to charge you $5 an hour," after you made that initial investment, and that's the only way you're going to play, right?
Mm-hmm.
You might be able to make an argument for that.
You heard the words you say, might.
Yeah, you might.
You might be able to, because because the thing is, you got to remember, when you go into an ecosystem, you signed up. Like when you bought your PlayStation 4 or your Xbox, if they never even did they say anything about cross-play, cross save, anything like that at the beginning of the generation? Were you promised that at the very beginning of the generation? No, these are all features that came to the system later on. And these are the different things that people try to use against these companies. And I just think it's a slippery slope when you try to throw everything under one umbrella that it really doesn't fit under, because that's how we get to the narrative we're at now. Everybody thinks everything's anti-consumer, and that's not the case. It's mostly business making business. They're making business chances. They're making chances on the things that they're making. You think it was? Let me ask you this. Do you think the Wii stopping production and not making games for a Wii U system after 3 years of being on the market and completely dropping that platform and going to the Nintendo and start working on the Nintendo Switch, do you think it's anti-consumerism to those people that spent all their money on that actual Nintendo Wii U, and then they had to turn around and buy a new system? Do you think that is?
No.
It's not.
It's a free market. It's a free market.
It's what the developer decided to do, and look, it's just like the whole thing. If Game Pass was to disappear tomorrow, or if Xbox Live was to disappear tomorrow, and there's no more Xbox Live because Microsoft doesn't want to support it, or PlayStation Online, they don't want to support it. If that gets taken away from you in another platform, like Nintendo's the only one to have it, is that anti-consumerism because they're taking away something you had? No, it's a feature that they gave you that they didn't have to give you. And just because you're used to having it doesn't mean it's owed to you. And that's the biggest thing people got to remember. Nothing is owed to you but the rights that you have as a person That's it. That's the only thing that is given to you as a human being in life. The rights you have. And some people don't even have those rights depending on what country you live in.
Hey, real quick,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Forte. I got to get this a super chat from Mr. Twister. Mr. Twister, thank you with the Swedish $50. I don't forget what the Swedish currency is called, but I know the SEK symbol is not SEK. SEK, SEK
God.
is Swedish currency. Thank you, sir, for the $50 Swedish currency. Super chat says if someone doesn't want to buy a PlayStation 5, it's their free choice. Anti-consumers is a buzzword used from fanboys on the losing side. Okay, I don't know if I agree with just fanboys. I mean, the people in the live chat are saying, you know, like FC saying, you know, check Webster's. Yeah, I'm checking. Obviously I've looked at the Webster's dictionary, but that's just a blanket definition of anti-consumer practices. Again, no one is taking away your choice as a consumer. It's the free market. If consumers don't want a product, they will reject the product, and that's the part that differentiates free market from anti-consumer practices. Like, you don't have to buy a PlayStation 4. You don't have to buy a Nintendo Switch. They're offering you and enticing you to come buy their product. When you buy their product, you're saying to Sony and Microsoft, by buying this product, I'm agreeing to your terms of service and what you're providing me because I find value in it. That's simple as that. You don't have to do if you don't want the product, no one's forcing you to do it. You don't have to buy it.
Yeah, and like everybody's saying in the chat, like a lot of people are bringing like the whole blocking of crossplay. Sony only bent the knee. It wasn't because of player feedback. It was because a giant company like Fortnite and Epic Games made them bend the knee. Trust me, it had nothing to do with us as gamers. Because if it wasn't for the fact that Fortnite was so huge, and even then it took a year for them to do it. You know, so, you know, when people think that change like that happened because people were complaining about it, you know, if anything, you probably had 1% to 2% of that. That was mostly done because Epic literally put the screws to them, and they was like, okay, well, if you don't want to play in our ecosystem, then fine. That's how it's going to be. And they finally caved on it. And guess what? Sony finally caved on Minecraft with Xbox. Xbox didn't force them to say, well, if you want to be in this ecosystem, we'll still release the game on your system. You just won't get the updates. Yeah. They were the only platform that was not getting updates for Minecraft, and they had the plain Jane version of Minecraft. What happened? 2-3 years later, I think it's been about 2 or 3 years later. Now you can get all that stuff on the PlayStation system because, you know, things have changed and leadership has changed and different focuses are in play now. And now you're starting to get the things you want on that system. But those are all options. Sony can say no to anything they want. Just like you can say, no, I do not want to go to the corner store today. No, I do not want to shop at this mall. I don't like shopping at this mall. People go to different, like I work at GameStop. There's 3 GameStops literally in a 4-mile radius of me. And people go to different ones for different reasons. They come to my store and say, I don't shop at that one. I don't like the people up there. That doesn't mean that they just, you know, don't like that. They just don't like that store. That's their personal preference. But we already killed this comment. Let's move on.
Yeah, and Slow-Mo, I'm going to hand you the L, by the way, for saying that what was going on with blocking, say, Epic and Fortnite, that def was. You get an L for that. Let's Forte. Let's hand Slow-Mo that L for today.
That's. I will give Slow-Mo some credit. He brought up a really good one where he's talking about how Disney made EA bend the knee with Battlefront.
Here's the thing, like FC saying, like Sony forces devs to remove it. Sony could. It's Sony's platform.
They can make them do whatever they want.
They can make it do it. They can make it's their platform. They own it. If they don't want it, they don't have to have it. And guess what? As a consumer, if you don't like that, then you exercise your consumer right and say, no, Sony, shame on you. That is not what I want from you. But because they're not giving us what you want, or they're not giving you what you want, doesn't make it anti-consumer.
I will give you an example of probably a anti-consumer statement. The whole when Jim Ryan was talking, I don't know if it was Jim Ryan, it was somebody in Sony, it might have been Jim Ryan, when they were talking about EA Access not being on the system, and they said it's something that we don't have to have on our system because our gamers don't want it. You're talking, see, at that point, he's speaking for you, taking your right away as a gamer, saying you don't want this. Basically, if he would have just couched it and said, this is something that we don't want on our system, like as talking about as PlayStation, we don't want it, then that is their prerogative to say, we don't want this as a company on our platform. We don't feel like it brings value to our platform. Maybe because, because we have our own online platform when they have PS Now. But as soon as he used the word, our gamers don't want this, then that was a statement that can fall under that umbrella, because he's basically taking the decision out of your hands and basically using you as a stopgap by saying, hey, don't look at us. Our gamers don't want this. Why should we want to have it if our gamers aren't asking for it? And that's not the case. And I think that's the difference you need to think when it comes to what these companies do and say. Are you being affected? Are you being used as the catalyst to start the conversation? Or is it something completely different? But I think that's probably one of the best things that happened over the course of the last couple of years, where you can actually say that's where you as a gamer were said, we don't want this, and a company tried to say it for you.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. But I see people in the chat don't agree with us. Some people in the chat don't agree with us. Jay Font says, according to you, neither of these companies do anything anti-consumer because we all choose to buy their platform. That's kind of the crux of it. Like, you're not forced to buy in these platforms. You can either enter an agreement with them, or you have the right as a consumer to say, no, I'm not going to do that. They're not forcing you to do anything you don't have to do.
Yeah,
that's and that's kind of that's how, I don't know. That's just my 2 cents on this and the idea of anti-consumerism, because I see it around there. But again, when that choice is taken away from you, different story. But we have that choice. We have the ability to clap back and say, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to support your product. Therefore, we're not going to enter any kind of agreement with you when we purchase said product. So, all right. By the way, great. Appreciate, guys. By the way, it's okay. Again, it's okay to have a difference of opinions. Appreciate everyone's insight into this. Definitely a interesting topic to say the least. So,
I know we basically just gave a bunch of content. I see a bunch of content creators in this chat, so I'm expecting to see a video from all y'all giving us y'all points on why this is and why it isn't. Don't have to do it, but I definitely want to hear from you guys to see what your guys' take on this is.
Yeah, we're gonna have. By the way, tomorrow night's Brat podcast, we're gonna have Hogue Law. We're gonna have Hogue. If you guys aren't familiar with him, he's been on the Iron Lords podcast. He's an attorney in the gaming industry. Maybe we'll talk to him a little bit in depth about this too. Get his thoughts real quick. Slow-mo Baxis was literally every single day. Ricky wants to hand me an L literally every single day. He fails. No, sir. You're going to hold this L today. Forte agrees with me. Hold that loaf, Slow-mo. Hold that Wonder loaf. You know what? You're holding so many loaves right now, you can open up a sandwich shop. So, challenge. All right. So, all right, let's get to this topic. Why this console generation was the most important to win. I think I've had some interesting conversations with big shout out to Lord Cognito of the ILP regarding this particular topic. And, Slow-mo, you and I have been gaming for a long time. We know that, and even Jim Ryan acknowledges.
Slow-mo, yeah.
Oh, damn it. I mean Forte. I'm sorry.
Slow-mo, dude. Look, Slow-mo, man. I just need to go. We just need to switch names for like a week just to get this. We might as well just make it official at this point.
Yeah. By the way, Jay Fonz, I'm not saying anti-consumer isn't real. I'm just saying when your choice is when you don't have the ability to exercise your right as a consumer, then yes, your choice is taken away. It's anti-consumer when you're absolutely forced. So anyhow,
right.
When that free market doesn't exist, yeah, that's anti-consumer. Anyhow, I'm not gonna.
We do. And I saw FC. He said, we always, never. What did he say? I want to take what he said wrong. Oh, y'all don't complain about anything ever in life. Trust me, we complain about a lot of stuff, man. A lot of stuff that we don't like. The biggest thing is this is the thing. When it comes to gaming, I don't really find it that beneficial to complain about stuff that's a hobby. That I mean, gaming is supposed to just be about having fun playing games. As long as I can play games, I don't care about everything else that happens because I know what business is, and some of the stuff is driven by business. Some of the stuff we don't like. I don't like some of the. I don't like that. That EA Access wasn't available on PlayStation because I felt like everybody should have availability to play that. I also didn't like when Sony came out and under the Thief of Night told everybody they had to pay for online because they had the whole crowd cheering about having the ability to share games. I didn't like the way that they did that, but ultimately that doesn't matter because the hobby that I love and enjoy, and most of us, because there are some people out here that just use this as a platform just to, spew negativity. I don't want to be negative. And, we're going to still talk about the things that matter. We're still going to give our opinions on it. But in the end of the day, it doesn't affect me to the point where I'm upset about it and I want to go on a tirade about it on Twitter or even here on YouTube.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. But you also don't really get wrapped up because you've made that choice to invest in this this hobby, right? The hobby that you enjoy. So, I see FC Violence saying something about dial-up. He's like, Eureka, you don't have to have Comcast. Dial-up is available.
Oh man, y'all should have heard the Echo session yesterday. If y'all didn't hear.
Yeah. But you know what? But again, like
symphony.
Look, television is free, but people pay for it. Are we going to say that's anti-consumer? You pay to watch the Super Bowl. You don't have to pay to watch the Super Bowl. You don't have to do that. You could actually get native 1080p HD quality through an antenna.
You can
right? now you're paying to watch the Super Bowl. Is that anti-consumer? No, because you're making the choice. You don't have to subscribe to cable, but you see value in that. As a consumer, you see value in it. And you make the choice to enter into that agreement with Comcast. You don't have to do it. That's my point. Z Black Rider says cable's very anti-consumer. All right, so this thing's gonna go on if we don't.
That's a whole nother. Yeah. Dude, that's a whole nother. Because there are things about that is true, but the things people think is not true. I mean, think that is that way, really skewed.
Well, Comcast has come under fire though, like in my area, for lobbying against competition. That's anti-consumer. Like the
fact that I can't even get Comcast in my area because they have a monopoly in this whole area, that is, because I have no choice. So basically what you're telling me, when I move, I have to base where I move to on the internet of that area.
Yeah.
At this point now.
Yeah. Fon says choice does not negate anti-consumer practices. Again, free market. If a company does something shady, you don't have to do it. You don't have to accept it. But, this idea, again, this goes back to the idea of exclusives being locked behind hardware, and so I know we went down a rabbit hole, but anyhow.
30-minute one.
Yeah. So, let's move on. So, so why this console generation was the most important to win? I've had this conversation with Cognito. You and I have been gaming for a long time, Forte. Even Jim Ryan admitted that, historically speaking, the incumbent for the previous generation hasn't been the market leader of the next generation. We've seen that. We have so many examples of that. Through I've been gaming. You've been gaming a long time. I've been gaming a long time. We've seen that. But I do think this time around is probably a little bit different. So let me ask you, Forte, because I think you and I are probably on the same page as this. Why do you think? Why do you think that this console generation is different? Why this was if you were going to win any console generation, why this was the most important one to win, or to, I hate using winning, but to be the market leader? Why is that the most important?
Well, because we knew digital distribution started during the 360 and PS3 era, and we knew, and this conversation was happening towards the end of that generation. the more and more games that were being sold digitally. As soon as they started putting those games on the system and you can download and buy them, that was pretty much marking the beginning of the end at box retailers and stuff. So when the new systems came out, bigger hard drives, internet speeds have become very, very more attainable in the country. I mean, they're still not the greatest, but if you live in good areas and stuff like that, you can pretty much download anything you need to download. And for me, this generation mostly just ties down to people are not going to be willing to leave their entire library behind. Like I'm like on the extreme side of it. I own like over 600 games on my Xbox One, and I own about 120 on PlayStation, and that's digitally, not even counting physical games that I own on the system and stuff. So for me, I just look at it as, if you were going to win a generation, or at least be even super competitive in a generation, it's the generation where people are going to be tied to your ecosystem more than anything. Because I keep hearing the argument, well, people have Xbox Live accounts. You're absolutely true. But what is tied to those Xbox Live accounts before this generation? What, a bunch of Xbox Live Gold games that they gave you for free that people literally said, well, I don't really care about that because I didn't pay for them. So, and plus I like the direction PlayStation is going in, so I'm gonna go over to PlayStation. And then what happened after that? People started buying the systems, buying the games, getting them digitally over there. Their friends started to follow them because the friend was like, hey, well, what system you got? I got PlayStation. Well, I'm about to buy a PlayStation 2. So I'm going to go over to that system with you. And then the same thing occurs. People start buying the games digitally. All your content is kind of tied to that system. And the same thing goes for Xbox, because there's a lot of people that do that on Xbox as well. But the only difference is people think there's going to be this renaissance of a comeback next generation for Xbox. And there will be, because I don't think Xbox will be as bad as it was this generation, especially with the messaging, because the messaging is kind of the first thing that threw a grenade on the problem. And then the games compounded that throughout the generation by not having the compelling games that want to keep people on the platform. So I think that's going to be better. But if you take the situation, piece by piece, you say, why is PlayStation and why Nintendo was so successful? Well, they're global brands, for one. That's the biggest difference. Xbox outsold the PS3 by 5-1 in America last generation. It's more even this generation here in America now. Like, Xbox is still losing the PlayStation in America, but it's a little more even. But when you take a 5-1 lead in the biggest market that's available for you to buy and literally flip that to an even kill, and then you lose the rest of the generation in other countries, that's where that 106 million people come from, or 109 now. But that's where you also got to remember the people that didn't buy Xboxes this generation, that only bought on PlayStation. That's another part. They just didn't see a value into it. So for me, I just look at this as, people think it's going to change next generation. It will be better, but Nintendo already has a head start on everybody, because remember, the Wii was part of the 360, the Xbox One and PS4 generation. They just cut it off short. The Switch is actually part of the generation that's about to start for Xbox and PlayStation, and they already got a commanding lead. But if we just keep this to Xbox and PlayStation is kind of playing with house money, just because they have so many gamers out there, and the ecosystem that they built with those gamers is so big that a lot of people aren't going to want to leave that stuff behind. And there's going to be some people that do, but I don't think people are going to do it in the droves that a lot of people think is going to happen.
And I agree with you, man. By the way, I got to take this. Got to pay the bills here. Big shout out to Saif Aofi. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. With the $1.99 super chat. Thank you. I'm super excited for my PlayStation 5, guys. That is awesome.
Same.
It's interesting, man, because I think, like you mentioned, like how digital started coming into play during the 360 PlayStation 3 era, right?
Right.
Now we see digital content at about 50% now of purchases. Is that? I believe it's 50%, if I'm not mistaken.
It's 50%. It got up to 70% for a while. I think usually spikes in the middle of the beginning of the year, tapers off towards the end because holiday shopping really skews that number.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, 50% for the entire year, which is up 30% compared to when the generation started. So it's only getting bigger.
Yeah. And so, like, it's funny. Like, I had this conversation with Optimus Code, and because I was saying, like, it's going to be harder for people to, like, the reason why PlayStation and Microsoft are so focused on backwards compatibility, forward compatibility, is because they want to keep people in their ecosystems, right? And how do you do that? If you've invested, because you always see people like say, "Oh my God, I primarily buy digital now," or my digital library, I got 300 games, right?
Mm-hmm.
People aren't going to just leave that investment. And I brought that up to Optimus Code, and he said, well, let me. He kind of broadened that a little bit more and said, well, just outside of that, you got to think about people's trophies, people's achievement, Xbox Live achievement score, people's PlayStation trophy list, right? You think about people's friends list that people go where their friends are playing, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people. It's funny. I've had people call me a pony Forte.
I know.
That's my
Lord.
Yo, Forte.
Is OBJ riding you around right now?
Oh, come on, man.
He got the whip. He got the whip out, hitting you on the butt, saying, "Hiya, let's go."
Oh my goodness, not like that.
Is that where we going with this?
No, we're not doing that. FC Violence says people will if they are casuals, and I'll comment on the casual thing too, because we've seen where the casuals have gone the last 25 years.
Right.
That you could guess it's in PlayStation's favor. So anyhow, people are saying "giddy up" now in the live chat. Thank you, Forte. I mean, people think that I'm a pony, and the fact of the matter is, I primarily game on PC now, right? Buy games on Steam, use Game Pass, but most of my gaming is still tied to the Xbox ecosystem, just on PC now, right?
Right.
The reason why I did not leave, and I'll use myself as an example, the reason why I didn't leave the Xbox hardware sooner than later was because that would have meant that I would have left, 18 years of friends. I had two gamer tags. I lost my first one, which was my beta account. And then, I got my new one back in 2007, I think, or 8, right? So that's 12 years right there. On top of the other years that I had, with meeting friends on Xbox Live Beta, that I still game with, that I still keep in touch with. It wasn't easy for me to walk away from that. That's why I stayed with the hardware and didn't upgrade to PC. Now, when Microsoft said, "Hey, you know what? We're gonna give you Game Pass, the Xbox Live platform, or the Xbox ecosystem on PC," I was like, "Cool, I'm going to PC now, right?"
Right.
My point is, though, Forte, is that, and I hear that the people think the casuals are up. They're going to switch. Look, the casuals are going to go where their friends are, right? The casuals have friends lists. They're going to go where their friends are. If they have achievements, they're going to go with their achievements. If they have a digital library, they're going to go with that, right?
Right.
And over the last 25 years, the casuals have primarily favored what platform, Forte?
The PlayStation.
Forte.
And Nintendo, honestly.
Yeah, right? And look, I'm not. This doesn't mean, and it's crazy. I have to preface this. It doesn't mean that Xbox sucks, or that Xbox is not successful. I would challenge anyone who would debate that the Xbox is not a successful brand, because you know what? Success is not defined by the consumer's opinion of, oh, well, they're number one, or they sell the most consoles NPD, or whatever the case is. Microsoft defines that, and that definition of success is defined by profitability, revenue growth, things like that.
Right.
Xbox is a profitable platform for Microsoft, therefore it's successful. And that's it. It's just that's just the way it is. And so I think that, it's going to be harder, I think, to get people to make a switch when they're so heavily invested in their digital content, right? And even prior to digital content, I know people are going to be, the Xbox 360, sold more than the PlayStation 3. Forte, what are your thoughts on that?
It didn't outsell the PS3. The PS3 came back. We're talking about and like I said, I knew this was going to be more of a. We said we were going to do this podcast. That it's going to be more of like we're hating on Xbox, knowing we're like deeply enthralled in Xbox and love everything Xbox is doing right now. But this is just the state that a person that's even with their eyes wide open, even if your eyes were half open, this should be still the way you look at everything. We're talking about a system that released in 2005, Xbox 360, had a year head start, had a 6 million lead head start from the first year, and then PlayStation came out the gate, didn't sell well. Xbox was like at 11 million after the year the PlayStation came out. And over the course of the next 5 years, PlayStation caught all the way up, and not only caught them, passed them by like a couple of million. And that is only because PlayStation is a bigger brand. It's another thing that I try to tell people. When the PS2 defined the PlayStation system. People don't want to hear this, but that's the truth. They sold 150 million systems. Now that 150 million systems wasn't just because of gaming. Most of it, I would probably say a good 40 to 50% of it was probably because it was the cheapest DVD player on the market. And I'm telling you right now, that was probably the most influential thing that Sony ever done when it came to gaming, because it opened up the base of what people knew PlayStation as to more than just gamers. When a person can go out and say, I bought a PlayStation to play DVDs on it, that was moms, dads, uncles, cousins, gamers too. But when when the next system came around, PlayStation 3, people already knew what PlayStation was. It wasn't a surprise to them. Then on top of that was the first Blu-ray drive that was available with PS3. Now they overpriced the heck out of it because of the sale architecture, and that's why it didn't sell at first, because it wasn't of value to people. But once that price dropped, people jumped on it like a dog in heat. And that's pretty much was all that was said after that. Now, the biggest thing that people just got to realize is this isn't saying Microsoft can't combat it. I'm just telling people there's a cap on what I think Xbox can do, and there's a cap on what PlayStation can do. And honestly, that's why Microsoft is looking into other revenue to try to, lift that burden a little bit off of just the console itself. That's why you have things like Game Pass available on PC and trying to get it available other places. That's why you got xCloud on mobile phones and people trying that stuff all over the place. That's why these ecosystems are being brought up. It's not because Microsoft doesn't think it doesn't belong in gaming, because they definitely belong there. They proved that back in 2001 with bringing us games like Halo and MechaSaw and a whole bunch of slew of other games. Xbox Live in general, they proved it. They proved it with that. So they belong there. But Sony, they're a hardware giant. They've always been into hardware, and they made the PlayStation name a very recognizable name outside of just gaming itself when it came to everything else. That's why people were so upset when they said, what, the PlayStation 4 Pro doesn't have a 4K Blu-ray player on it? Remember when all those articles came out and they said, well, PlayStation pioneered the Blu-ray drive. They pioneered the DVD player. How does your high-end system not have a 4K Blu-ray player? That's because PlayStation was an innovator in that space, and they didn't do it, and people noticed it. And that's why that wasn't going to be a mistake with the PS5. So that's how I think Sony became such a giant in PlayStation, because they appealed to a wider audience from the beginning. It started with a DVD player, turned into a Blu-ray drive. Now they don't. Now it's like you're playing with house money. It's just like people like it's like PewDiePie makes a video.
PewDiePie.
When he was PewDiePie, but when PewDiePie was smaller, he just made a video and threw it up, and he didn't. He had to hope for views. Views didn't come like that. But guess what? Now, when a man with over 100 million subs, he can just drop a video and it's gonna hit 2-3 million just because he has a huge following and a huge base of people that know who he is. Guarantee you, probably a good 60% of those subs are dead subs. Of that 100 million, a good at least half are dead. People that don't watch his channel no more, but doesn't matter because he built up such a following and people that like his content. He's still gonna get views off that. So once you become that big and you cast such a wide net, it's hard for people not to pay attention to you. And that's why I think Sony is going to be perfectly fine next generation. They're probably going to be I don't think they're going to be the market leader because I think Nintendo really has a lot to say with that. And Nintendo beats to a drum of their own. The fact that kids are born every day, gamers are born every day. We started the system we both started on, probably Atari 600s and stuff like that, aren't around. So Nintendo's the next best thing. They have theme parks built around their characters that people go to. And us as gamers grew up on systems like Nintendo. So we feel safe in saying when a new system comes out and we have kids of our own, their first system is probably going to be a Nintendo system. And then their kids are going to be the same way. And then it's just going to keep going down that same path because we trust and believe in Nintendo to take care of the youth when it comes to the type of games that we want them to play when they're younger. And then guess what? Unfortunately, Sony has the second half of life. There's more competition there because Xbox is a part of that. But they'll never, I can't say never because anything can happen. Sony could fall off the earth tomorrow. People, trust me. There will be more people crying if Sony was to ever disappear from gaming before those tears were shed for Xbox, because a lot of people feel like Xbox isn't. It's just the truth.
Really?
There will be more. Look,
I mean,
there will be more tears. There will be more tears if Sony was to disappear forever and Xbox was to disappear forever. There's just more Sony fans out there. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Outcry will be worse if Sony was to disappear.
Yeah, I just want to interject real quick, Forte. Like, Forte's not saying that Xbox sucks. I think what Forte is, because I know you're going to get some people that are like, oh my God.
Oh, yeah, they're going to say it.
Forte's saying Xbox sucks. He's a pony. We knew it all along.
But yet I haven't played my PlayStation in months.
Facts. But, Forte, I think what you're speaking to is the power of the PlayStation brand. Look, I keep telling people this, and it just goes back to, I think, why this is the most important console generation to win, because of how much we're tied to our content now, like with forward, backwards compatibility, digital content, trophies, friends list. I think the friends list thing is huge. And Sony got that this generation, and it's going to be hard. Even Mikey Barra said this. It's going to be very hard to pull people from PlayStation to Xbox next generation if they don't, and they, meaning Microsoft, offer really new, great, compelling, big AAA IP bangers that compete at the same level as Nintendo and Sony. And look, I mean, I will beat this drum because I don't think objectively there's any, I don't think you could argue this point, but Nintendo and Sony have better first-party output than Microsoft does. I mean, when's the last time a Microsoft first-party AAA game has been up for conversation of Game of the Year or Game of the Generation?
Yeah.
I mean, I might have to go back to the original Halo for that, or Halo 2.
Gears of War.
Or maybe the first Gears of War.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it doesn't mean Xbox sucks. It just is what it is. Like any other consumer good, there's certain companies out there that just do a better job at making certain products. Just is what it is. It's the world we live in.
Yeah,
Um,
and and just to let people know, like there's podcasts, there's a bunch of podcasts. Shout out to RDX. That is the real deal Xbox podcast. And they talk Xbox. And guess what? The things that they say on that podcast are absolutely correct because they literally shine the light on the best things that Microsoft are doing, especially right now. They don't really go back into the past about how things are happening, in the past for the system. They only concentrate really on what the future is. And I get it. That's why, gamers, they want to hear the good news and stuff all the time. They want to hear about the good things that's happening in gaming and how Microsoft is going to make this comeback. And I agree. Everything they be saying. I was on the podcast a couple weeks ago and I agree with everything they were saying. I just think that for a lot of gamers out there, they really have this belief that it's going to be different next generation. The only thing that's going to be different is Microsoft is actually going to try. Because that's the thing I don't think they did this generation. They didn't try once they lost the beginning of it. It was pretty much like cruise control until they've got their footing. Now I think they're going to put an effort to say, this is what we're going to do. But the thing is, the effort isn't going to be in console sales. It's going to be around the services that they're providing you, which is the most important thing to Microsoft at this point, not hardware.
Exactly. And you know what's funny? People don't think that Sony's going to take that approach too. They are too. These companies are going to do things to generate multiple avenues to generate revenue for them. I mean, that's just smart business. That's what we're going to do. And I see Sony guys say, "Oh, well, Sony's never going to put games on PC." That happened, and that's going to be a mainstay for Sony. By the way, they're going to put games on their first party exclusives on PC. Sony's going to have more of a PC presence next console generation than they ever have. They're going to focus and talk about services more than they have. You're going to see that from them because if you watch what Sony's done, and you got to remember, Xbox isn't the first to game streaming. Sony's been doing this with PlayStation Now for quite some time now. Sony recognized a long time ago that they needed to start changing kind of how they approach their business model. I just think that people haven't been paying attention because Sony's also not been shining a lot of light on it, right?
Because it's not the focus of them right now. It's just it's an option at this point, truly an option for them.
Exactly. But they've been making moves to go this direction for years. When you hear the CEO of Sony saying, "Hey, PlayStation console gaming is niche," what does that tell you?
Yeah. When he said that, I was floored. I was like, wow, that's the head of the company, of the market leader, telling you the hobby that you love and playing on a console you play it on is niche.
Yeah. And
take that as you will.
But that means that they know that that's a small market, and they're going to implore some of the same things that Microsoft is doing. They may not be as aggressive about it because I do think that hardware is still going to play a vital role this console generation. I know people are saying streaming is the future, and I think that it's going to be an addition to in the immediate future. But we may be like 10, 20 years away from actually having no hardware, right? Where we could still get these, and I look, it's easier to stream games that don't require high fidelity and whatnot. But but even then, you're dealing with internet connection, so you're leaving consumers at the mercy of data caps, latency. I think until that's perfected and everyone can have the same experience, no matter what internet speed you have, you can get similar experiences you would as on a game console natively. I don't see that being a situation or completely taking over the industry just yet. Who knows? Maybe that changes. Maybe this thing gets perfected, after next generation or at some point early next generation. I don't know, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. And oh my God, dude, I've had too much coffee, man.
Well, I just think that
I just realized I just started rambling. I'm like, man, I've had too much fucking coffee. It sounds like I just blew a line.
I was doing the same thing earlier.
No, but I mean, before T, I don't see it as being. And let me know your thoughts. I don't see game streaming as completely replacing consoles anytime soon.
No, they're not going to replace consoles. Like I said this on RDX, streaming will never replace the physical means of playing the game on native hardware. until that's not an option anymore. I mean, I'm not going to just stop gaming because the one way that I'm used to playing games change. This is something that happens over the course of time. You know, at one point, we never thought it would be a situation where we wouldn't buy CDs and DVDs, you know, when it comes to music. And you know, and it's years, decades have passed, and people still go out and buy that stuff. But the more efficient way to consume that media is to just get something like Apple Music or Google Music, or you know, Tidal, if you want to be able to listen to music, or even satellite radio. That's pretty much the more efficient way to do it. You can go out and buy CDs and stuff still. I don't know if cars even come with CD players. I mean, think about that. You can't even go buy a car with a CD player in it anymore.
I think it's optional.
It's optional now. Like,
yeah.
Dude, the navigational is like navigation in a car is almost standard now, where the CD player is optional. Think about that. That's how far we come over the course of the last 10 years, because that wasn't a thing 10 years ago. So the thing's going to happen with gaming. The once they hit a critical mass, and like Enrique said, you're able to, the latency isn't a problem, and we don't have issues with streaming, and the infrastructure for America and the places that want to get the internet is stable enough, this will become a viable thing. And it also will be combined with system sales declining, because as long as people are buying physical systems, this future will always be held at bay. But this is truly up to the consumer, up to you guys, the people in the chat, people that's on this panel. As long as we buy the hardware, it will be fine. But guess what? It's not really truly all up to us, because like we said, 80% of the market is casual. 80% of the market is casual. What are the casual people going to do? Are the casual people going to stop supporting systems later on? Because if they do, that's going to really impact the bottom number. And if streaming is more of a viable option, and you have that 1-to-1 ratio that everybody wants, you may not have a choice, because the consumer that matters the most is the 80%. And they're the ones that's going to move the needle. So it could be 5 years from now, it could be 10, it could be next generation, it could be the generation after. It's going to happen. We just need to be ready as gamers to either move in that direction, or like OBJ always says, the moment that game stream becomes a thing, I'm done playing games.
OBJ's he's not gonna stop playing games, man.
That's what I said.
So OBJ, I hear you, OBJ. You tried on live and it didn't work, but I'm telling you, they
that
put
was
out
20 years ago, though.
That was 20. Yeah, they put out a banger, OBJ. You might be on board, man. But you know, it's this whole thing. This generation is just fascinating to me, because I've been doing this 38 years now, and you know, we've seen just like this massive shift, man. I said this like 20 years ago when Microsoft decided to put an Ethernet port on the back of the system. On the back of the system, I said gaming is about to change, because they're giving us. Developers are going to have direct access to gamers in a way they never thought possible. And what I mean is in terms of DLC, storefronts, you know, online storefronts, ability to buy games digitally. I mean, that Microsoft, you know, was, you know, I mean, look, Sega, in terms of the console space, was first in terms of online, but Microsoft took it to another level with the addition of the, you know, broadband modem in the back of the original Xbox, which I think helped them, you know, tremendously with the 360. But you know, now we're being introduced to game streaming. We're being introduced to, you know, with digital. You know what's funny about the whole DRM thing? Everyone's still connected is connected online to their consoles like 24/7. So it's like all this like anger over Microsoft in 2013 was so ridiculous, because like for me. Like I was like, when I saw people outraged, I'm like, yo, like I've been connected. My Xbox has been connected to the internet for like, for 11 years now. I mean, like, what's the big deal? You know? And now you see digital purchases up to about 50% of all purchases that gamers make. So here we are 7 years later, and all that anger and frustration was for nothing, in my opinion. But you know what's interesting? Go ahead, Forte.
Yeah, go ahead. No, I was because I got a question I want to ask you after you're done saying what you're going to say.
I was gonna say Nintendo's interesting. We had the conversation with. We've had a lot of conversations about Nintendo, I think, on this podcast as well, and I've heard it with other podcasts. The thing that Nintendo does and why I think they've been able to be really competitive with the Switch is because they truly do offer something that neither Sony nor Microsoft offers gamers right now.
Right.
The ability to take your console on the go, play your games, come home, dock it, play it on your TV. No one else does that right now.
True.
And we can make fun of Nintendo and how far behind they are and how stubborn they can be. If you want to call them arrogant, I don't. We had Optimus Code on the other day. He said, so Nintendo's arrogance led to the birth of Sony, and it did. But I think that Nintendo is just a different beast. I think, like you said, they are probably still going to be. They're not anticipating the release of the new consoles really impacting sales of the Nintendo Switch, and I don't see them declining. And I think the big thing that kept Nintendo alive after the dismal Wii U was their first party. The fact that they have a certain level. I mean, for God's sake, their first party, Mario's getting a freaking adventure park, right?
That's what I'm saying. It's a park built around their characters.
Yeah, I mean that's like the only
Disney World, but for Nintendo.
I mean, think their character brands are probably they're like the Disney of gaming.
Video games.
Yeah.
They're iconic. They have literally iconic characters that everybody knows who they are.
OBJ the Don says, I just can't wait to see these companies say and do when their streaming aspirations fail.
I mean, okay, so this is what I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
Because I know it comes off that we're being negative and saying Microsoft or Xbox can't come back from this. What do you think Microsoft needs to do to make this a fight that we think they can win?
All right. So here's the thing, man. That's a great question. They don't have to come back. I mean, again, our definition as gamers in terms of what makes a console successful is completely different from how these businesses define success, right? I think that Microsoft has carved out a nice little pie, right? I said this a couple weeks ago. I think that these companies can kind of operate in their own lanes and still be successful because the gaming pie is so big now, right? I will say this, Forte. I do think, though, coming into this generation, they're in a much better place. Much better. I mean, I'm excited about, I know people say xCloud's going to push xCloud's going to push, Microsoft over the edge. I see this people saying xCloud's going to put Microsoft over the edge of Sony. I don't think so because that would require people leaving. People don't leave for services. People leave for content, right?
Right.
I keep saying this. Content is king. I mean, Forte, how many new pieces of hardware have we seen that have come in and failed over the last 40 years?
Ouya.
Yeah,
Stadia to this point so far.
Stadia. Look, Stadia is not. I know Mooch says, "Oh, they're a new technology." I get that. They could still turn things around.
3 months, but
it's only been 3 months.
Worst 3 months for a startup. Then it's not great. Put it that way.
But I guarantee you, had they had a killer app, a must-have killer app that people needed to play, more people would have gravitated towards Stadia because of that game.
Look, man, Xbox would not be here in the state that it is if it wasn't for the fact that they bought Bungie and got Halo day one. One.
Ed Freeze knew that they needed a killer app to entice people to come to the Xbox platform, and it was Halo. Halo is what cemented Microsoft as a player in the console game space. So, but back to your question, Forte. I think that I don't want to say what do they need to do to win. I think that obviously the Xbox is a successful brand, right?
Yes,
they're driving revenue. They're profitable. That defines success. Same thing with Nintendo. Nintendo may not drive the same amount of revenue as Sony and Sony and Nintendo because Sony and Microsoft, because Nintendo doesn't also have those other revenue streams that are associated with Xbox and PlayStation, right?
Right.
But my point is that, you know, I think they've done a lot of great things to set themselves up to position themselves to be in a better role next console generation, to offer Xbox gamers that are in the ecosystem, the Xbox customer, I think better gaming experiences, more accessibility to gaming through xCloud. I do think the jury's out on their first party acquisitions, and I'm not trying to take it. I think I'm not trying to take anything away from, you know, like what Obsidian's done. We know the work Obsidian can do. I think Ninja Theory is their most talented developer right now. I know people will probably argue that point, but I think what they're doing with Project, what is it? Project Mara is really interesting. Very, very creative. I mean, from a creativity standpoint, I don't see any of the other studios, as far as I know, because again, we don't know what you know, their the other studios are doing. But I think from what I've seen so far, I think that you know, Ninja Theory is probably their most creative studio. I'm on the fence at 343. I'll leave it at that.
Everybody's on the fence for 343.
Yeah, but I think they're in a better place, Forte. I think that they can potentially earn some more mind share. I think a lot of the things that they're introducing in terms of streaming is going to be adopted by Sony. You know, we've seen Sony do that before with you know, with online multiplayer play, things like PlayStation Now Plus. But I think they're in a better position, man. I really do, and I'm excited about some of the things that they're doing in terms of like xCloud. Like, I'm in the xCloud beta. It doesn't work perfect with all games, but with the games that it works really well with, it's really cool. Like, it's a different avenue for you to access your gaming library, and I think that's cool. Like, I like that. Give me another option to access my gaming library outside of my home. I'm all for that, right?
Right.
But and I'm also just interested and kind of excited to see what comes out of the first party. I hope that they really deliver some compelling content outside of Halo, Gears, and Forza. I hope they don't rely. I don't think they will, and I hope the new AAA games that they're working on are new pillars for the Xbox platform. But that's my 2 cents on Xbox going into next generation.
Yeah, I think for me, it just really boils down to content is king. And somebody said they need someone in the chat said they need life-changing games like PlayStation does. And you know, and that's kind of what the story is when it comes to PlayStation games. A lot of PlayStation gamers feel like those games truly impacted them on an emotional level. And I get that, because that's how Halo was for me. Not so much ever since 343 took over, because there's been so many missteps and the stories have been disjointed and everything, and multiplayer was good and it was bad and all this other crazy stuff. But every time I saw a trailer for Halo, like, I remember when they showed off Halo 2 and jumping out of the ship and taking a bomb and going through space and dropping it on a Covenant cruiser. When I saw that trailer at E3, I was emotionally impacted. I was like, this is beautiful. And that was a year before the game came out. And I was like, I can't wait to play this game. And for literally a whole year, I just kept watching that trailer like, oh my God. No, don't even know what the game's going to be. Just very enthralled into it. And I get that when people, you know, talk about Sony games, because that's basically what the same thing is for them. So they definitely need that. They also just need to they really need to find a way to ingratiate themselves even more to the gaming community when it comes to the just the messaging of the system. They're doing it great right now. They've been doing everything the way I need them to do it as of right now, but that needs to continue throughout next generation. You know, they kind of lost their way. I felt like what made them one of the best ecosystems to play in, because they stopped investing in what the gamers like about the system. You know, double down on what your fans want. You know, BG was talking about in a video where he was like, multiplayer is what he cares about the most. He loves Sony single players, but they haven't supported him on the multiplayer side like he would like. And I think that's where Microsoft kind of lost their way at. Yes, they still support multiplayer and all that stuff, but it's not as huge as it was before. You know, when you allow games like Call of Duty and stuff like that to lead the marketing side of what you do best, which is multiplayer, I feel like that's a misstep because you truly just made another system more popular with the game of the decade when it comes to most played in Call of Duty. That should be synonymous with Xbox because Xbox is a shooter bro box. So Microsoft needs to get back to what makes their platform special and different from everywhere else. You know, you are king of multiplayer. You're inclusive in that space. You need to dominate that space. You can't let somebody else come in and take players away from you like that anymore. And then the last thing is just be humble. Don't get the big head like you did at the beginning of this generation. Don't think that accessories like the Kinect or things that you make like that is going to be the way of the future for you. Don't bet on Game Pass, not Game Pass, but xCloud being the thing that's going to save you. Double down on what made you successful as a company in gaming. The box did that for you. Games like Halo and Gears and Forza and Fable, games like that did that for you. You know, xCloud is going to be great when it's finally ready and is released to the public and people are able to try it. But for the foreseeable future, it needs to be about the system, the ecosystem that people like to play in. And that's what not even the ecosystem, like, 'cause they can play on xCloud. But it needs to be about the console space. At least for the time being. And then once you build the confidence of the fan base back up, then you start branching off into those other medians like, you know, xCloud. Because I think Game Pass fits perfectly in the console sphere. And even on PC, because if you don't have an Xbox, you can play it on PC. And that's a great move. Very, very gamer friendly, and I think that's something that Microsoft should be congratulated on. But they need to do more and more of that stuff at the beginning of next generation, and really give people a reason to say this is why I want to own an Xbox. They can't do it through services.
But they can't. That's what I'm saying. Content is king, Forte. Like, the services are great, but they don't mean anything without content.
The services are there once you already have the base in play. And once the base is in play, then you can introduce the services that can help broaden the horizon of what the base is. You know, you want it to be more of an in conjunction with, other than the only option or one of the options. And that's the one thing I want them to do. I want them to double down on just being Xbox. And if they can do that, they'll win back a lot of people. But until they do that, that's the one thing that, you know, I just feel everybody's waiting for. You know, Sony has built the empire already. Microsoft is on their way to building to the top of the spire, but they had a pitfall. But the only difference is when Sony had their pitfall, they started releasing games like Uncharted, and then they made Uncharted 2.
Yeah, well, that's my point. 3. That's why I say, Forte, content's king, you know?
Yeah. Yes, yeah. And that's the double down effect right there. You know, double down on the games you make. Even like what's the name of the freaking game? Quantum Break. We should have a second one. Double down on the content you make. Don't be afraid to make the games that if you put money into the first one, make a second one. Show people that you're risk averse. I mean, you have all the money in the world, and I know companies don't want to do that. They want to make money over money, and I get that. But when it comes to gaming, you kind of want to let your fans know, like, hey, we want you guys to enjoy these games and play these games. If we feel like it's a game that's definitely got some legs, we'll make more of them. And that comes back to, like, cause if Sony would have just took what Uncharted 1 was, because it didn't sell as well.
Uncharted 1 was not a good game. It wasn't a great game.
Garbage, bro.
It wasn't good.
It was not good. But guess what? It happened if they would have stopped there. We would have never got probably one of the best games of last generation Arguably, probably better than Last of Us when it came, because I feel like Uncharted 2 is by far Sony's best game outside of probably God of War, the new God of War. Because Uncharted 2 was mind blowing when I played that game for the first time.
Yeah.
But we would have never got that if they
Yeah.
had the thought process that Microsoft had when it came to games not selling well or doing well in general.
You know what, Forte? I do because I think you said earlier they kind of need to kind of go back to what kind of being like the console king of shooters, right? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, they need to get back to that.
I agree with that. I agree with that somewhat, but I do disagree with you in this regard. I think that it just can't be that. I think they need
no. They can't just be. You're right about that.
Yeah, like Sony needs to do it. Look, I agree with BG. Sony's got to do a better job of putting out a first party, exclusive PlayStation shooter, right? They SOCOM bring SOCOM back. I mean, SOCOM.
I don't know why they didn't bring that back yet.
Well, there's a rumor that that's being worked on. But SOCOM. I mean, SOCOM is a game that had a pretty big following when it was out, and it was a big multiplayer game. But that's an avenue where Sony, I think, could probably do better and not rely on third party developers like Activision to provide those experiences, because I just think it deepens the portfolio of exclusive content that you offer gamers. I think Microsoft needs to do that as well. With shooters and with those single player experiences like you talked about that move you emotionally. Like Halo did that for us when Halo first came out. Gears did that. Gears of War 2 did that. I haven't had that kind of experience, to be honest with you, this generation with any Microsoft exclusive that I played. I just haven't. Where I just played Days Gone, and I'm like, oh my God, like I can't wait for the sequel to Days Gone now. Like I want to continue this adventure with Deacon, Boozer,
I'm gonna maybe play that game, man, because I keep seeing you and Salty keep saying it, and now you're saying I have that game. I need to play that game.
That is look, I'm not gonna lie, there are issues. There are some technical issues with that game. There are parts of the game that drag on. Sometimes the pacing's off. The story seems a little disjointed at times, but there's some really likable characters there. There's a really intriguing storyline. Oh my God, there's an ending. I'm not giving. I don't want. No, I can't say anymore. But
be quiet.
Yeah, Days Gone is my like most underrated game. One of my most underrated games. I would say Rise, Son of Rome, and Days Gone are probably the most underrated games that I played this console generation. And Days Gone, I'm telling you, I cannot wait for the sequel to that game. And I'm telling you, Forte, going through that adventure with these characters and that, like you said, that getting that emotional response. People say, oh, I don't want emotional responses with my games. I just want gameplay. Okay, well, you know what? When you're invested emotionally into a game, into a franchise, chances are you were going to be compelled to come back for that sequel to carry that story on, I haven't had those feelings with anything that Microsoft has put out this console generation, and I hope they address that, because I would love to see even Gears 5. I liked Gears 5, but I didn't really, I
get you.
Yeah, it's not doing it for me, where here's Deacon St. John and Boozer. These are new characters, and I'm like, okay, this is interesting. They're trying to survive this post-apocalyptic zombie world, and dude, I'm just hooked,
Yeah, and a couple of people, it is a difference in opinion. I know I said Uncharted 1 was trash. It wasn't trash. I just didn't like the control compared to the second one. Yes. The control was terrible in that game compared to the second one. Just like Mass Effect is my favorite franchise ever. The first one was trash compared to the second one, because I like gameplay over everything else. And the gameplay was just not enjoyable in Mass Effect 1 because you felt like you were turning a camera at 2 frames per second sometimes. Compared to the next one, everything was just perfect. So that's what I mean about Uncharted, because I know we got a bunch of PlayStation fans that love that game. But that was the reason I didn't too much care for Uncharted 1, just because of the control. Second one was perfect. But when it goes back to what you were just saying, I just think when you are known to be a shooter system and the other system doesn't have a compelling shooter on it that they make themselves, and you allow the number one shooter on the in gaming to go to that system and get all the exclusive rights, you're losing more than you're gaining at that point. Some people would think that, well, they got Halo. Yeah, they got Halo, but more people bought Xboxes for Call of Duty than Halo. Let's just be for real. Because they had exclusive content for 30. Well, it was 30 days then.
Yeah.
Exclusive content. And that was the reason the system. So like first part, like look, exclusive sale to the people that want it. Third party is it moves the needle. And if you're going to be known as the number one system for shooters, you can't lose the number one shooter to a system that doesn't even really care about it. And that's where the problem started at. So it's not, like you said, it's not a break, everything fix all thing. It's just mostly, that's what I just want them to get back to what they were good at. And multiplayer is one of the good things they're at. And services is another thing they're good at. I don't too much care for xCloud. It's good. I'm in the beta. I enjoy it. It's playable, which is the number one thing. But it's not something I'm truly interested in. Game Pass as a service is amazing. I mean, you can't say anything higher than a 10 or 11 on that, because they always add new stuff to it and it makes it better and better. And that is probably the perfect formula for them, because it can be used anywhere when it comes to Xbox, it could be used on PlayStation. They allowed it there. But those are the things that Microsoft needs to focus on this generation to make it a better one for them going forward. But going back to the main thing that we talked about, the reason this was a generation not to lose is mostly just because of content. And it always comes back to content. And the thing is, the content isn't just the content you bought on a disc. It's because people bought that content on their systems. And with your library going forward, think about this. God of War has an uncapped frame rate in the performance mode. It runs about 45 frames per second. When you play 45 frames per second on PS4 Pro. What do you think that's going to run at on the PS5? Because it's uncapped. So when you throw more power at it, you're going to get more frames.
Power.
So I can see more people, just if they got God of War digitally on their system, to want to enjoy that game at a higher frame rate. I know I'm going to play it again just to get the higher frame rate, because I want to see what God of War plays like at a rock solid 60 frames per second, because I guarantee it's going to run at that on the new system. And Halo's the same way. Halo 5, as much as I didn't care for the story as much, it was an uncapped frame rate. It ran like 50 frames per second. But guess what? New Xbox comes out. Going to be able to get that above 60. So there's benefits to everything, but digital library and content itself is the main reason why this generation wasn't the one to lose. But things can change. I'll never say never, because people look, Sony could come out and drop a turd on the ground and explode, and Xbox could reap all the benefits from that, especially with the mindset they have going into the next generation. So barring Sony doing something catastrophic like Microsoft did in 2013, so it's Sony's to lose. And I think that's the biggest thing. Sony has all the cards right now. It's up to them to blow it for Microsoft to be able to take a lead from them. But outside of that, it's pretty much going to be the same as this generation, but Microsoft's going to be more competitive. They're going to get people back. They'll sell more than 50 million systems. I can pretty much guarantee you that, because the mindset of the company is in it to win it. So they'll probably get the 70. They might get the 80 million. PlayStation's going to probably be around the same thing, if not higher. And if you, as an Xbox fan, if you want to say Xbox sells 80 million, PlayStation sells 90, and you want to take the small win and saying that they sold less this generation because Xbox was more competitive, I'll give you that, because I think that's pretty much where both these systems stand at. Because Microsoft, I think Sony benefited so much from the beginning of the generation. That's why they're at 109 million. I think that will get flipped a little bit. Sony will probably be around 90, maybe 80. It could be a 7th generation all over again. So we can only wait to see. I'm super excited to see where these systems go. I'm super excited to hear these price points, because Sony's holding out for Microsoft, and Sony's got a plan. I already know they got a price point in mind. I really want to see what Microsoft comes out at, because if they drop that system at $400, $500, look out below. Because I don't think Sony's going to. Sony might drop it $399, but then it's the value proposition. Do you want the way more power? Because third party's going to look way better on that system than the other one. But I just can't wait. I'm excited. That's pretty much the whole thing for me right now.
Yeah, I'm excited. The biggest thing I'm excited about is that there's going to be, I think there's going to be a bigger leap in terms of what developers can do with the new hardware.
Yes.
Versus this, because look, I mean, the CPUs that are in, these consoles are just garbage. They're not good CPUs. They're just trash. And I think that's to me, that's the biggest improvement that we have. Better CPUs. So we're going to see developers do things with higher frame rates. You're going to see bigger worlds. That's what I'm excited about. That there's going to be a leap, and what I heard from a developer working on exclusive next generation content, that gamers are going to be floored by what they see, and I can't wait. I really can't, man. That's the one thing I'm really, really excited for. Slomo Backslap says $400 Forte is high. You gonna let that man say that to you, Forte?
Look, man, he can say whatever he wants. Look, I still think it's gonna be $600 for that new system, but being a person that wants gamers to be happy, $500. If they could come in with the Xbox at 500 for, like, Microsoft can lose money. We were talking about this yesterday on Primetime when Mooch was on there. It really comes down to this. If Microsoft really wants to tighten the screws around Sony, drop that system at $400. Take a loss on it. You're going to make all the money back in software sales. On top of that, you're going to get more people into the Game Pass ecosystem. You should do this. They can make it a limited time offer. System release at $400 this holiday only. Get it while it's hot. And then after the holidays, it goes up to the regular price point of $500. It could be more of a thank you to the gamers, saying, hey, thanks for supporting us for so long. All the early adopters get $100 off the system. On top of you trading in your own system. See, I should work for Microsoft. Because ultimately, it's all about getting people in your ecosystem. If you can tell me I can get a brand new Xbox, the Series X, for $400, pretty much the same price as the PlayStation 5, I got Game Pass, I got online, all of these games, and then you say limited time offer, I'm there, because that's a value proposition there. And I think that's the thing that Microsoft needs to double down on. Yes, they are a company that makes millions and millions of dollars, but in gaming, systems don't do anything for you but open up your install base. They just give you the platform to be able to give it to more people. So if they want to truly win next generation, drop that thing at $400. And then say, hey, now software is going to be what's going to sell for us, like they did during the 360 generation.
I tell you what, Forte, they do that, and you think about,
they'll win next generation if they do that.
You think about the potential value of Game Pass. That is going to make things very interesting. I mean, very interesting.
I will say they will win next generation. If they do that, they will win next generation with Game Pass, with a system at a high-end system like that at $500, and just the value proposition. Dude, I can't say they'll win, but they'll be in a situation they've never been in before if they did something like that.
I mean, yeah, they would put themselves in a better position. I would agree with that. I don't know if they would win.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll win, but they'll be way more
But they'll be,
competitive.
yeah, exactly. FC Violence says no, they want Forte. I don't know if he's
Yeah. That's why I was thinking about it. I was like, that lets you know I'm an Xbox fan. That was my Xbox fan coming out of me saying, I'm not gonna lie. That was my Xbox fan. Every once in a while, the Xbox side does come out, and I mean, dude, I love Xbox. I want them to win, and that's why I want them to do the things it takes to do. And at this point, yes, I'm spending Microsoft's money by telling them to do this. Say, hey, you don't need that extra $100. You got billions of it, trillions of it in the bank. But guess what? It's not about the system sales. It's not about the price of the system. It's about how many you can get into people's hands. And the more you get, like if you can give Game Pass away for $1 for 3 months, what is $100 going to do if you just make it a limited time sale? Can you think you could promote that? When has a brand new system released on a limited time sale? Don't you think a lot of people would jump on that because it's like, oh, it's $100 cheaper if I buy it now versus if I buy it after the holidays, it's $500.
Well, yeah. I mean, the hardcore gamers are the early adopters. So. Of consoles,
That's how you get the casuals with it.
I mean, you could potentially maybe get some casuals, but you're gonna get. I think you're definitely going to. I wasn't planning on getting a Series X, right? But if they came in and said, "Hey, $100 cheaper," I might say, "Hey, you know what, kids, we're trading in the Xbox One X, and because I'll get trade-in value. I'm gonna go to my local GameStop." Get trade-in value for that console.
Right now, X is trading for $250.
Get the $100 off of the Series X, and boom, I'm good. So
that's all that matters.
Yeah, that's an interesting proposition there, Gaming Forte. Slow-mo backslap, King of the Loafs says Forte says he would be willing to lose $200 per unit sold in order to outsell their competition in only 2/3 of the regions their competition sells in. So.
Oh yeah, you're right, Gregor Von Doom. He's right. A GameStop employee creates ideas for deals, usually end up in the company losing money. The company always every time GameStop does buy 2 get 1 free, they lose money. It's mostly the only reason they do deals like that is so you could come into the store and buy other things. So if you come in, think about it. If you come in, if they drop that Series X at $400, wouldn't you be more enticed to buy more games day one? Like, oh, they dropped it $100. Let me go in here and get 2 or 3 games with it. You only make 5% off of every system you sell. 5%. That's what you make. And then that's only, you might only get 3% of that because retailers get a cut of that too. So you say 2 to 3% on a $500 system. So that means you make what? $10-12 off of it, versus for every $60 game you sell, retail makes what, $12. Then you want to think the rest of that goes towards the publisher and the manufacturer of the system for the game. So you talk about split that up between what, $48 in marketing and everything else. They make more money on a game than they do selling that one system. They sell two games, they're making even more money. I mean, I went to school for business and I went to school for marine biology. So I'm all about just numbers and the best ways to make more money. And that's what I think Microsoft needs to do. Not saying they're going to do it, because I think, companies are risk averse, and Microsoft is a very risk averse company when it comes to the things they like to do. But I'm just saying, if they want to be competitive, even more competitive than they can be, and really make some noise, drop that price. Like Slomo said yesterday, if Sony's not your competition, give Sony the specs to the Xbox. Let them see what those specs look like if they're truly not your competition. It's all about showing at this point, not just telling people what's going to happen. You got to make it happen now.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. I think Forte, maybe Microsoft should hire you.
But man, they should hire all of us, man. But it's completely, I will say this, it's not easy being, because being on the outside like this, talking about this stuff is real easy because we could just throw shit against the wall. Once you're in Microsoft and you're making these decisions, you a bunch of other things to think about. But it's widely known. Software is what makes money. And now you have a service to back that. On top of that, with Xbox Live, I just see it as a great opportunity to give back the gamers that supported you over the course of the last 20 years almost. By giving them the Cassandra, I mean, I can't even say the word right. Basically giving them something that they all wanted, and then, hey, it doesn't have to be. It only can be temporary, and I think the word temporary sells a lot. When you make it limited time, people will run out and do it. I think that's a value proposition that people forget about.
I don't disagree with that, man. I think you would certainly create a buzz. I think, you would certainly create, for those early adopters, they're going to go out and they're going to, and even people that maybe were sitting on the fence, they may say, wait a minute, I got to get this deal now while it lasts, because it's only, for, a specific time frame. So, oh man, come on, Slow-Mo. Slow-Mo says, when you call someone else the king of loafs, but you don't know what anti-consumer means. Slow-Mo.
You know how Slow-Mo is. Slow-Mo thinks walking across the street and not being able to Slow-Mo thinks if you got to walk to the corner and walk up the crosswalk versus just walking across the street is anti-consumer. You telling me I got to walk all the way up to the crosswalk to cross the street? I can't just cross the street right here. He thinks that's anti-consumer. So that's Slow-Mo for you right there.
Oh my God.
They have a rule. It's called jaywalking.
Oh my God. Oh my God. You mean you gave me a speeding ticket? That's anti-consumer.
That's anti-consumer.
All right. On that note, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the rant. I want to thank everyone for hanging out with us. Want to thank everyone for hanging out with us this afternoon. Definitely appreciate everyone in the live chat. Thank you guys so much. It means a lot to us that you were able to come out and hang out. By the way, interesting enough, some kind of breaking news here. The FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, is demanding data about acquisitions from Google, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Microsoft.
Oh, God.
Speaking of anti-consumer practices, actually, this has to do whether or not the order was issued as part of a study that the agency is doing into whether these companies buy up nascent or potential competitors. The initiative will enable the commission to take a closer look at acquisitions in this important sector and also to evaluate whether the federal agencies are getting adequate notice of transactions that might harm competition.
That's interesting.
There you have it. So on that note, Slow-Mo says Forte's abuse of Pokemon toys is anti-consumer.
Whatever. And hey, Bratton 4, if you play one game, but I put in hundreds of hours and don't play multiple games, does that make me a hardcore gamer or casual? Look, man, when it comes to that question, it's more of, I believe it's not based on how many games you play. It's not even really based on how much you play. It's based on how you interact with the hobby. Like, us doing these podcasts and stuff like that, even though sometimes we don't get a chance to play games as much as we want, we're kind of hardcore because we talk about games every day. I work in games. I play games. So I consider myself, and I only play one game for the most part, hundreds and hundreds of hours. So I consider myself a hardcore gamer because it's the thing I'm passionate about. It's really don't ever let anybody tell you how you should feel and what you are when it comes to a hardcore or casual gamer. When we say casual gamers are mostly people that play on phones and stuff. If you go out and buy a system and you're playing multiple games, I mean, you might only be hardcore in one game, but that doesn't mean that you're a casual. People, mom and dad are casual. The ones that buy these systems for their kids, they're the casual people.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a great point. Like Slow-Mo Backslap, he's a casual gamer. He plays solitaire, and that's pretty much it.
Oh my God. Oh my God, Slow-Mo. He plays solitaire.
Yeah.
Hey, he old though, man. You gotta remember that.
Yeah. Gregor Von Doom says Forte as a kid ran a lemonade stand. He bought lemons for $1 a piece and sold cups of lemonade for 10 cents.
Oh Lord.
Yo, they're going in at you, man. Yeah, they're going in at you.
L's.
Yeah. Slow-mo says his only customer was Enrique. You know what? I might have been his only customer, but I got a deal on some lemonade. Meanwhile, Slow-mo's busy playing solitaire. So
I'm gonna ship you some bath water, Slow-mo.
Yeah. All right. On that note, guys, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up this Brap Rant. Guys, we are going to be back live for our regular scheduled Brap podcast at tomorrow night, Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have a special guest joining us. We have Hogue Law, who's going to be joining us. You may have seen him on the Iron Lords podcast, and we're going to be talking about the latest and greatest with Anthem. That's going to be an interesting conversation. And we're going to be talking about Sony's acquisition of Insomniac Games. We'll have some other content to talk about as well. So definitely don't want to miss that tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Special guest Hogue Law is going to be joining us. He is an attorney within, I believe, the gaming industry, if I'm not mistaken. Has been featured on the Iron Lords podcast a couple of times. So definitely don't want to miss that. On that note, everyone, thank you again. Hit that like button. Anyone who hasn't subscribed to our podcast, please subscribe. Hit that bell notification button so you know when we go live. And, we appreciate the support. And again, we'll be back tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Slow-mo says Enrique's gamer score is 350. His previous gamer score was 700.
It went backwards.
Yeah.
So basically, what you're saying is every time you get a new achievement, deducts from your score.
Yeah. Slow-mo's gamer score is 0 because he plays solitaire. So, and he plays it on easy.
Ooh.
On that note, we are out. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Later, guys.